Hey there YouTube, the Buzz Slasher here, coming to you with a deck profile on my second place Gear Chronicle deck in the regional qualifiers in Baguio City. I named it Gear Cancer in my deck list because it really is one of the most powerful decks in the meta right now. And it's not really that special, but since some people requested it, I'm gonna do it anyway. So here we go. I'm gonna start with my G-Zone first, starting off with 2 copies of Warp Drive Dragon. Now, this card is very good back when Urwatar was at 4, but right now its usage is diminished because there's rarely any good units you can time leap with it without having your units permanently bind. So this is only used if you somehow drew into your Urwatar and you need more ways to time leap, and it's also a good counter to Luar decks or any decks in general that like to keep their units to set up. Then I run 1 copy of Metallica Phoenix. Back when time leap was introduced, this card was a beast. Literally, this is a gear beast. The only downside to this card right now is it is a gear beast, so it doesn't trigger Chronojet G's stride skill. Still the very best strides for time leaping shenanigans. It's basically CB cost. It has no CB cost and it flips a G unit, so it also set up Chronojet G's other skill. 1 copy of Fate Rider Dragon. Now this card, I like to use this because I tend to draw into a lot of triggers early game. So what I like to do is if I stride this first, build stride skill to time leap my other units, preferably Chronodran into Meskia if I have Melem in my hand already. And using its ability, I can I call it level up. You level up the Meskia into a History Maker Dragon, preferably History Maker Dragon, so you can set up those Melem combos. 2 copies of Chronos Command Revolution. Now, I don't have Chronos Command Dragon in my G-Zone. The only reason I have this in here is because to counter the Luard plays, and as well as any generic deck that likes to set up their entire field. This unit basically returns everything on the rear guard back to their owner's bottom of the owner's deck. Including, since I don't have a copy of Chronos Command Dragon in my G-Zone, you also return yours. But most of the time, if you know what you're doing, you rarely have any field when you stride into this. And this is mostly for certain matchups. 4 copies of Next Stage, basically the finisher of the deck. And what's else to say? It's technically a restanding Vanguard. Some people think I'm running I should run Gear Groovy, but the problem with Gear Groovy is it eats up too many G-Zones, and I'm not really after the Generation Break 8. Just 4 Next Stage is enough. If I don't, maybe in the future I'll try to use Gear Groovy again, but as of right now, the only other unit that's good to copy with Gear Groovy is Next Stage and probably Fanglong. But I recently took it out because I rarely have any permanent bind units, and if I do permanently bind a unit, it's usually a trigger, which Fanglong cannot get. G-Guards, 1 Rafana. This card, if you use this to guard Generation Guard, you can return any grade 1 or higher unit you have on your rear guard back to the deck and call a grade 0 at rest. If you do, it gains 10,000 power. Normally, you only use this to set up for maybe Urwatar and possibly a Gear Cat in case you need more guarding power. Next, we have 2 copies of Hetero Round Dragon. Obviously, one of the most broken not really broken, but most powerful G Guardians right now. It's up there with Denial Griffin. So you Soul Blast 1 if you have a Chronojet Heart or Vanguard. You select one unit on your opponent's rear guard, return it back to the deck, and they shuffle their deck and call the top card of the deck. It's mandatory that they call a unit. This is a very good card because you don't have to return the attacking unit. You can return the any other rear guard your opponent has, and basically it sort of serves as two shields. Also, it combos very well with Gear Cat since they're returning a unit back to the deck, and if you have Gear Cat on your rear guard, if they don't have any other skills left to use, you can activate Gear Cat's ability and giving your Vanguard extra 10k since they return the unit. So for that turn, Chronojet Dragon or basically your Chronojet Dragon Vanguard gets 10k power at least if combo with Gear Cat. One copy of Urulu, so one of the best G Guardians in the game alongside his Terror Round. What it does is you return one trigger and one normal unit from your drop zone to the bottom of your deck, and it gains 5,000 power. You can return the same heal trigger, you discard it, you used for the cost for discard. So it basically returns, you're turning your heal trigger back into the deck. For my remaining two G units, I run Ultra Dragon. Now, Ultra Dragon is only here if you cannot stride regularly for you like discarding a grade 3 or discarding Steam Red Dragon. You stride this by counterblasting one, then binding one Zodiac Time Beast unit from your hand, and you stride this. It's not technically free, but it's a better alternative if you don't have enough units to stride with. And sometimes in the late game, his ability is quite useful. Normally, if I have one permanently bind unit or I time leap for that turn, I use this ability and just bind use its ability to bind just any regular 2 units. So, and if I don't have a booster, since I have 3 units bind, it gains 6,000 power for that turn, so automatically it turns into a 30k 2-beater. Lastly, I have Sea Breeze, self-explanatory for the grade 2 gaming. For my main deck, I run obviously 4 Chronojet Dragon G, the bread and butter of the deck. If you stride a Gear Dragon or a Zodiac Time Beast, you get to call one unit from your hand to the rear guard, and you can select one other rear guard and time leap it. And if if you don't stride or after a next stage turn, this card gains 5,000 power for every 2 face-up G unit you have. So, and it gives 1,000 power to your Zodiac Time Beast rear guards. Do take note that the power gain for the rear guards also counts by 2. So if you have, let's say, 6 face-up G units, this card gains 15k power, and your Zodiac Time Beast rear guards gain 3,000 power. Then my other grade 3 is one copy of Chrono Fang Tiger G. Now, I only run 5 grade 3s in this deck, but I may bump this into 2 copies, so I may run 6 in the future, but I'm still debating on it. The reason why this is in here is because of the Luard matchup. Honestly, this is a great counter to the Luard deck if you're not striding into Chronos Command Revolution. Ever since the Time Leap mechanic, Gear Chronicles, or basically the Chronojet build, has lost its ability to return units back to the bottom of the deck. It lost its somewhat control, so Chrono Fang Tiger G somewhat returns that control aspect. The skill is, after it attacks, you may Soul Blast one and permanently bind one other rear guard you have. Usually bind Ur Watar in my rear guard. So basically, if you bind Soul Blast 1 and bind one of your other rear guard, you get to select one of your opponent's units in the same column as this unit and return it to the bottom of the deck. Again, I like to combo this with Chronodran or Urwatar. You Soul Blast 1 and bind Urwatar or Chronodran and return a unit from your opponent controls in the same column. Then, since Urwatar and Chronodran were binded from the rear guard, their skills activate. This card is if you don't have any Counterblast or History Maker Dragon, this is a good card to activate their skills as well. So it has dual purpose. For my grade 2s, I run 3 copies of Calibum. Now this is a great card to counter basically the mirror match. Not everyone thinks this is I didn't expect too many mirror match, but I did face one mirror match on the top on round 9. There were only few Gear Chronicle players that I saw in the event, and I only faced one of them. So basically, this card it's not Generation Break. It's only 8K, and it only works on rear guard. And take note, this Calibum is mandatory. If you call it to the rear guard, you have to select an opponent's rear guard, and they have to return it to the deck, and they may call a unit with 1 grade lower than that unit. So this card is usually used to return the starting Vanguard, aka the Forerunner, back to the opponent's deck. And since there's no grade lower than 0, they don't get to call another unit. As I said, this is a good counter for the mirror match, because usually Gear Chronicle players love to keep a Gear Cat on their rear guard before ending their turn. This unit is a good way to return said Gear Cat back, so they can't combo it with the Terror Round Dragon. Also, you can use this offensively by returning key units your opponent has, like an Intercept. Of course, they're gonna call a grade 1, but depending on what you're facing, just make a good judgment on what to return it. Also, another offensive way to use this is to call your Gear Cat. Call this card, return something back to your opponent's deck, and you can now use Gear Cat's ability to give either this or another of your unit 10k powered for attacking purposes. Then I run 3 History Maker Dragon, part of the Elite 4. This is basically the better Amber clone without the... I say better because it doesn't need to be boosted. All you have to do is attack the opponent's Vanguard. It doesn't need to hit, so you counterblast 1 and time leap 1 other unit. You run 2 Delayed Blazer Dragon. Now its ability is if you call it to the rear guard, regardless if it's from your hand or your deck, you get to select 1 grade 2 unit and time leap it. You can select itself and time leap it into a grade 3. Normally this is just used to, it's usually used to combo with Steam Sniper Lishma or History Maker Dragon after time leaping your grade 1 into Delayed Blazer, and you time leap either History Maker into a grade 3. And the other ability of this card is if you have if this card is in the rear guard and you time leap a unit, this card gains 2000 power. Normally you just only use this one, so it becomes an 11k attacker, but I've managed to use this in one of my games. I time leaped 3 times, so it gained 6000 power, and behind it was a 7k attacker, so it was now attacking for 22k. Lastly, I run 4 vanilla 10k grade 2s. Also the Chrono Spin Serpent. Technically not vanilla, because this is partly a Zodiac Time Beast deck, so again, if you have Alter Dragon, this is a good fodder for it. I mean, if you have extra copies of this in your hand and you can't stride, you can basically CB1 and bind this from your hand to stride Ultra Dragon. Also, if you're attacking with Chronojet G and this card is in your rear guard, it gains it gains power due to Chronojet G's ability. So if you have at least 2 face-up G units, it becomes an 11k attacker on your turn. For my grade 1s, of course, I run 4 perfect guards, 1 SP, 2 regular, and 1 alternate art. Sorry, I can't find any more alternate art. Anyways, this is Arlim, the Unflipper PG. Like I said before, Gear Chronicles have a huge amount of usage for counterblast, so the Unflipper PG is the best one to use for this deck. 1 copy of Steam Sniper Lishma. If it boosts the Vanguard after it attacks, you can Soul Blast 1 and discard 1 and time leap this unit. And that ability is not generation break, so you can use this early game. Although you're gonna neg 1 yourself if you're not generation break, because the generation break ability is CB1. When this card is returned from your bind zone, you get to draw 1 card. Used for the time leap shenanigans. Again, as I mentioned, you time leap this into Delayed Blazer preferably, and Delayed Blazer time leaps your other grade 2 into a grade 3. I'm not entirely sure, but some people use this as a good counter to the grade 1 7Cs, although I don't quite see how this card counters grade 1 7Cs when you're negging yourself. Sure, you get more attacks, but so do they if you give them counterblast, so quite redundant. 1 copy of Meshkia. If you call this to your rear guard by a time leap effect, so you get to rest this unit and give 1 of your other units 4k power and you draw a card. Also, do take note that this has to be time leaped from your deck, so calling this from your bind zone back to rear guard does not activate its ability. Some people got this confused once. I forgot who. Not gonna mention names. So just a reminder. 2 copies of Takeaway Dragon. In my opinion, one of the most powerful grade 1s in the time leap deck right now. Its ability is every time you call a unit via time leap ability, you get to select 1 card from your drop zone and return it to the bottom of your deck. Now, it sounds very simple at first, but do take note, you can return any card, even triggers. Also, what not many people know about this is, on end phase, when you're calling back your units from the bind zone back to rear guard due to that after returning the time leap unit back to the deck, this card activates on end phase because you're technically still calling a unit to rear guard via time leap effect. So one time leap can potentially activate this card 2 times in 1 turn. So, and if you have 2 copies on the rear guard, you basically return 4. But first, the other important grade 1, the Stride Fodder. Steam Red Dragon, only 3. I don't have any extra. I don't have the new alternate art, and with the new announcement of the GBT11 Zodiac Time Beast Stride Fodder, I'm gonna replace them with that soon because most of my grade 3s are already Zodiac Time Beasts, and I'm not running the original Chronojet, so better have it become a Zodiac Time Beast in case it's in the rear guard and I have Chronojet G online. So it gets power. The best card in the Elite 4. 4 copies of Steam Maiden Melon. Now, everyone knows her, everyone hates her, but she is basically the bread and butter of the Time Leap combo, the Elite 4. So her ability is when this card attacks a Vanguard, you may have her gain 4,000 power. So since her base power is 7k, if you let her gain 4k power, it's 11k power. And If you do so, you return this back to your deck and call a grade 0 at rest. Basically, use this to tickle your opponent for 11k, and if they guard, if they don't guard, you get to return this back to your deck and call a grade 0, preferably Urwatar. So, and if you time leap Urwatar, you get to call her back, and Urwatar returns back to your deck and netting you one card. So in my opinion, Melem should be the one that's supposed to be restricted, not the TikTok worker. Not TikTok worker or Urwatar, because those cards don't work properly without her. For my triggers, obviously, for Hamster, or Serapi Hamster. Now, why not Urulu? It's because I need the Zodiac Time Beast unit. I thought about using Urulu, but there were games where I have to bind my heal trigger to strike into Alter Dragon. So as much as I like Urulu, even the new Urulu, the one with this ability, I have to run Zodiac Time Beast as much as possible. Although on the GBT 11 set, there's a new heal trigger, so I might run that over Hamster, or maybe both. I'll keep 2 copies each since I have to hot stamp. I run 1 Rabbit critical trigger, obviously, for the Zodiac Time Beast. For Sheep, the draw trigger, Chronojet Sheep. People think that why am I using draw triggers when I have Urwatar and a lot of draw engine? Do take note that next stage discards 3 for its ability, so you're gonna need your as many card advantage as possible. And Chrono Sheep is also a Zodiac Time Beast, so it's a fodder for Alter Dragon. But the most importantly is you have to run, in my opinion, you have to run 4 draw triggers if you're planning to use next stage to its fullest, because you don't want to just discard any 3 cards randomly. You need as many cards in your hand as possible for the next stage place. For Throbbing Worker, obviously the generic Strider plus move to soul plus 5k and draw a card. 2 Gear Cats, the bane of everyone's game, because it combos really well with Heteron Dragon. But do take note, despite the once per turn wording here, it only refers to the card itself, not the whole entire ability of the one card. Let's say you have 2 of this on your rear guard. The once per turn meaning this card only activates once per turn, not in once per instance. So after returning this, you can return both and give your Vanguard plus 20k power, because the once per turn only refers to the card itself, not the same copy. Of course, the other crucial part of the Elite Four, Urwatar. When this card is binded from the rear guard, you get to return it back to the bottom of your deck and draw 2 cards and return return any 1 card from your hand back to your deck and shuffle. So you attack with Melem, call this card, use Mystery Maker Dragon to time leap it back to Melem. This card goes back to the bottom of your deck and you draw 2 cards and return any 1 card back to your deck, netting you at +1. Of course, my other non-trigger grade 0 is TikTok Worker. This card cannot be, as of the rulings, this card cannot be used as your starting Vanguard. Also, can only run 1 copy of this, like Urwatar, because of the restriction. After one of your units rearguards attack, you may put this card from your rearguard to soul and time leap that unit. So using this on, let's say Melem attacks and you have this on your rearguard, after Melem attacks, you put this card into your soul and time leap Melem and call a grade 2. Then Melem's ability activates, since Do take note that Melem's skill is the returning part is not a cost. Rather, the plus 4K power is the cost or the condition to have to call a grade 1 in, from your deck at rest. So Time Leaping Melon with this card not only nets you a grade 2 but also lets you call that grade 0, preferably or Watar, to your rear guard. So on end phase, you Melon that grade 2 returns and you call back the Melon, and if that grade 0 is still in your rear guard, you basically you basically gain 1 card advantage. And my starting vanguard is Chronojet. Now this card is the other target for my time leap into Melon. So basically you time leap this card. If this card is binded from the rear guard, you may put this into your soul and select 1 Chronojet unit from your deck and call it to rear guard, and on end phase it goes back to your hand, giving you a stride fodder for next turn. And that's basically my gear cancer deck. Like I said in my vlog video, my Gear Chronicle deck is really not that special. This is actually more in comparison to what most people in Japan run. It turns out that it just works really well with my playstyle. There were games where the lack of grade 3 made me hesitate at first, but looking back, because of the 10K grade 2s, you can have enough sustain before they're forced to either ride their own grade 3 first, or you GSS enough. You can GSS if they ride into your tree and you still don't have yours quite easily, because with the other good side of this is, since you only run 5 grade 3s, there's rarely any chance to have a bad drive checks now. But still, so that's about it. Thank you for watching.